Okay, good evening and a warm welcome to everyone to tonight's ICW 2026 event. My name is Anine Bennett. I am part of the board of the Bahrain chapter of the ICF, who is the hosts of this evening's wonderful session. I'm a PCC and an organizational psychologist. And really, tonight's topic is around words that shift worlds, the power of meaningful coaching dialogue. Now, this conversation tonight will explore how coaching conversations can enable human connection, create movement, clarity, and even transformation. Our words are very powerful in shaping our reality, and we know in coaching, it can also shape transformation. So I am going to quickly introduce our panel. Let me just see how I do that now. Everything has shifted. Okay. Just give me a second. Just want to share a screen. Can you all see my screen? Yes? No?
Yes.
Oops. Okay. So to introduce our wonderful panelists this evening, I'm very honored to firstly introduce Coach Hamsa Saeed, a fellow Bahraini. She's a PCC, a corporate and life coach, and I learned recently that she was one of the first to bring coaching in Arabic to the region. Very warm welcome to you, Coach Hamsa. We also have Dr. Clare, MCC, coach educator, coach mentor, coach supervisor, and she holds many other roles. We're very honored to have you here this evening. She's from the UK and no stranger to the Gulf region. We really extend a warm welcome to you. And then finally, my fellow South African, Aneshrie Yasar. She's an executive leadership and team coach who coaches in South Africa as well as internationally. A warm welcome to you all. And then finally, a warm welcome to all of you who are in attendance tonight. We look forward to this really wonderful session this evening. So time is of the essence, so we are going to go straight into it and look at how language can shape our reality. And so I'm going to ask Coach Hamsa, we'll start with you. In your experience, how can language shape a client's reality? If you don't mind sharing.
First of all, good evening to everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm very happy to be here among you. I feel it's a very long time, so great being here. And inshallah, we're going to share our insights and also your feedback about this. So speaking about language, Anine, the first thing that came to my mind when I read the question, it was like, is it language or dialogue, you know? And then I said, what is language to me? And then like I wanted to create a meaningful meaning or description to language. So when I realized that to me language is expressing and language to me is words, language is the system. Like just to make it easy, let's put it in a metaphor. Like I have imagined that this session that we're doing now is a combination of, or we're talking about an orchestra. We're talking about instruments. And how I would describe the language, I would describe it as the instrument, okay? Being it a violin, being whatever instrument you can work on or play. And the dialogue is the orchestra. It's the synergy. It's the energy between the coach and the client.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. I really like that metaphor. Aneshrie, anything you would like to share from your perspective?
Yeah, thanks, Anine. Thanks, everybody. Great to be here, and thank you for the invitation. Always lovely to learn together. So, on this question, I think in my experience, language doesn't just reflect a client's reality, but it actively shapes it. And so, the words the client uses often reveals their assumptions, their emotional patterns, the identities they're holding on to or living inside of. And so through coaching, we get to support creating that awareness around the language and exploring alternatives that are more grounded, intentional, and more aligned with a client's values. So as a coach, I'm listening, yes, for their reality, the story they're sharing as it is, and also to support them become more aware of how that language might be reinforcing or reshaping their reality. So for myself, because I come in with a certain lens, so in my training, it's based on the work of Dr. Brene Brown. So, a lot of the courage, vulnerability work, I'm paying close attention to language around vulnerability, shame, self-protection, and finding times to reflect those words back to my clients. So, and creating the space where they can see how it's shaping their experience. So, for example, a client narrative could be, I have to prove myself. They're constantly talking about needing to prove themselves. And through that reflection and discussion around it, the subtle shift can become, I want to contribute more meaningfully. And that change from I have to prove myself to I want to contribute meaningfully can change how that person then chooses to lead or relate and even make decisions. So yeah, I think awareness becomes a starting point, and there's a beautiful quote by Robin Sharma, and it says, "Awareness precedes choice, and choice precedes results." So if a client is coming to us and saying they want certain results, it actually, we have to take them right back to the awareness they're having about to their thought patterns, and because only once they're aware of that, through the words that they're using, they can start making more quality choices.
Wow,
Yeah.
powerful. So I think it's about how you're saying how that you as coach can then show different possibilities for them, and that awareness, like you say, is a starting point. And sometimes that then opens room for transformation. So, Dr. Clare, can you share a coaching moment with us where maybe one conversation shifted everything for a client?
Yeah, and first of all, thank you for setting this up. I love the way that the competencies are being brought into the conversation already. So with this, it's really hard to pin down one particular thing. What is what is evident is so many times whether someone's feeling stuck or imposter syndrome or nervous to go for that promotion or difficult conversations, especially in times, sadly, like the Middle East has been through recently. And I was in Bahrain during the Arab Spring as well. And so in that way, what can be useful is to get them to name it. And it leads on from what our colleagues have just shared as well. So I often think of it as sensing. And we've got the cognitive, the left logical and the right creative. Then we've got the emotional. And we've also got somatic, what we're experiencing in our body that many leaders don't necessarily tap into. Sorry, is that better? My microphone was at the back of my head. Sorry about that. Thank you. Yeah, so cognitively, emotionally, and somatically. And I often think of this that came from a guy, it was actually from career coaching, Bill Law, and Professor Bill Law, and he said about sensing. And of course, we've got so many senses, what we see, hear, taste, touch, smell. If we could have 5D coaching online, That'd be maybe one day we will with technology. Sensing, sifting, getting down to what I often describe as a gem together that needs polishing even more, and then focusing and going to questions like, what's this really about? That type of thing can enable them to shift perspective, see from different angles, even going psychodynamic. And now that they've named it, what's your first experience of that? And now you've reflected on that. What's going on for you in the here and now in this coaching session? So with many leaders across the region, I believe it all comes down to fear. Fear of something, you know, whether it's the stuckness, fear of success is a really interesting one as well. And one particular leader, they needed to own their success. They were a CEO already. They've done the 360s, you know, they've had their leadership development, but actually going quite existential into what is your purpose? Why are you on this earth right now, in this role right now? Getting to the emotions, which brings in beliefs and values. I went with him also to, and what would your children say if they observed you in this situation? And that type of thing tends to take us under the iceberg. So we've not just got little bits of change, we've actually got things that trigger and move to transformation. And with him, he ended up moving from CEO to minister. And so working at an even higher, powerful level and having even more impact.
Wow. Thank you for that. So what I'm hearing is it's often about, again, creating those possibilities for the client to see different perspectives, but for them to name it and to dig deep under the surface, like you say, to the bulk of the iceberg, to what is driving this. And I think linking it to purpose, you know, that always is a powerful way to shift the conversation, which then enables the transformation. So really, really powerful stuff. Thank you for that.
And to add to that, if I may, not just the seeing, but enabling them to connect with it beyond sight and hearing, but also to where is that in your body, that fear?
Yes. So there's a saying that you know, knowledge is power, but I also believe that applied knowledge is actually powerful and transformational. And I think that's what you're talking to. It's not just knowing it in our heads, because often we know what to do. It's about what sits behind that, that's maybe, like you said, getting in the way, the fear, the beliefs, the values. And once it's embodied, that's when the shifts and the transformation happen. So I really resonate with what you've just shared. Thank you for that. Hamsa, if I may, if we could look at transitioning or how we show up as coaches in the sessions, especially when emotions are high, complexity, pressure, we too may feel it. And for us in the region with what's happening during this time, you know, how do we offer that support to our coaches? So what would it take for a coach to then engage, be present, be intentional in their dialogue, and be conscious in the midst of all of that?
I believe that me as a coach, or like my ritual, what I do is when before any coaching session, and specifically talking about critical moments, or situations, difficult situations, I see that the preparation is very important. when I say preparation, it's preparing myself for the session, for the client, preparing and being ready, being connected to me, to myself, connected to the intention of this session. What else comes to my mind? Also courage. It is courage to stick to my intention, and and I believe courage is a very, very important value, especially in the coaching session. I also believe practice is very, very also important, is very essential. We tend to focus on, as Claire was saying now, like on the knowledge, but I definitely agree with her that it's not only about knowledge. I think we've spent our time accumulating a lot of knowledge, accumulating a lot of like school of thoughts, differences, and also comparisons. But I feel that, or I believe that the essence is not in the knowledge itself. It's about how you're going to apply this knowledge at the situation, how you're going to you can have like, it's not about the quantity, it's more about the quality and how can I use what I have. Also, it's very important for me as a coach to be updated. I mean, maybe this was different like 10 years ago, and things are moving very, very fast. So depending on the situation, it depends on the complexities, it depends on the emotions that are rising in the during the session. I see myself as I need to be updated about the client, to be updated about who am I coaching also. Because it's a two-way dialogue. It's a sync, it's a synergy, and it's an energy between the two. So an update is very, very important, especially now, like the Gen Zs, and it's not only about the Gen Zs. And a lot of things are changing now. The introduction of AI, the way how clients are thinking, the way even their patience. The patience is different. I mean, I maybe like 10 years ago, I wouldn't really relate to this, but definitely now, yes, it takes a coach to be courageous. It takes a coach to be updated. It takes for a coach to be definitely present. And I haven't mentioned present because, maybe I take it as a default. Being present is the essence of any session, whether it's being in a difficult situation, in a complex situation, and emotional. I mean, presence is the core. Presence is the core. Listening, active listening is the core. And again, I would say, going back to intention, like reminding myself, why am I here? What do I want? Who am I being now? And what does the client want? It's a combination of a lot of things. And as I said, it's a couple of points, including courage.
Wow, thank you so much. And I think it links back to your previous point when you talk about the synergy and the orchestra. And I fully resonate with what you've said. Thank you for that. Aneshrie, anything you want to share, or maybe how would you regulate yourself in those situations?
Yeah, I think self-regulation is such a key part to this piece that we're speaking about, because we cannot show up for our clients the way we need to if we are not regulating ourselves or not aware of what's happening, especially when there's high emotions or the complexity in the conversation feels high. It requires us to be more grounded than ever. And so one of the things that I know my supervisor shared with me, which I use now, is that process of bracketing. So where we bracket our thoughts in the moment. So when I start feeling activated around something my client has mentioned, for maybe the context feels a bit more complex than I'm used to, or there's a lot at stake for the client and I'm feeling the pressure. So I immediately make a side note in brackets that indicates to me that something is off and that my internal state requires some type of regulation. So that's when, the regulation piece would normally kick in. And so the self-regulation for me it's the starting point. So grounding starts with breath and presence and slowing down the pace, allowing silence if needed, and choosing fewer, maybe more precise words. And so for myself, I go, what feels important to stay with here? And then checking in with the client, what are you noticing as we sit with us? So just slowing things down a little bit so that we both feel more regulated, especially myself, but I'm using breath a lot in that scenario.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, thank you for that. And then that then enables again those possibilities and maybe opens up more space for the client when we do that. So, Dr. Clare, if I may, when we are coming towards when we've now created the awareness, we can see the client has had a shift, or there's an insight or an aha moment, or you can see the shift is happening. How do you then know when the client is ready to move into action?
Ask them. Because we might think that we know, and we're not always right. I notice a lot when there's initial coach training, which is a fantastic thing for MCCs to do, because you're going right back to that first, what is coaching? And, you're relearning every time you deliver training. And so staying with them where they're at, noticing body language, tone and pitch, and sometimes even just that someone moves and almost gives you a nod. Sometimes they even do give you a nod. So all these things are relevant, but also check in with them. I'm sensing it might be time to move on to action accountability in our session and locking in the learning. Are we ready right now? And I'm using partnering language there as well. And actually, my advice to coaches would be stay, stretch it out even more. Keep checking in. What have you learned so far about the topic? What have you learned so far about yourself? Competency 8, checking in. Is this where we are in service of what you needed to leave the session with? And all those checking means that we're being right there with them where they need to be. But also ABC, always be contracting. Right from the get-go, contract with a client to say to them, hey, at the end of the day, this is our session, yes, but it's your session. And it's your life, and it's your work, and so forth. So it's also giving them agency, ownership and responsibility, and the psychological safety to speak up, to say, hey, I want to move on now.
Wonderful.
And a little tip there around the moving on. Sometimes they want to move on, but they need to stay. And
Good.
so a check-in around that can be super useful as well.
And if I may follow on from that, because there could be resistance, right? I think sometimes clients come with pressure to coaching, because these are the objectives. The organization is funding my coaching. These are the objectives we're supposed to meet. And so they may sometimes jump too quickly to get to action. because, you know, it's like another thing that they have resolved or fixed. And so, like you say, sometimes they may want to, but how do you then allow for that space for them to stay?
I think all of that goes back to that very initial conversation with the organization. Why coaching now? What coaching's been done before? What do you see coaching as? Who's the client? Where's the confidentiality? What way are we together all creating the KPIs for the project? And so keeping that in mind, some of the work we've done with organizations in the region where we've had the best outcomes are having the coaches and our team step into authority, and supervision's super useful around this. It's there in the competencies, however, really enabling the coach to, this is the way that I coach. I know this way works. I am flexible. I may use different modalities. And the more confidentiality that's there, the more we'll be coaching the human being in front of us, as opposed to the 1, 2, 3, 4 that the organization feel they need to address. And of course, both are totally connected, but going to who they're being before jumping to what they need to do.
Yeah.
That's where great coaching happens.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you. Coach Hamsa, anything you want to add to this?
Just give me a second to
Sure.
reflect on this. Yeah. As Claire mentioned, or maybe what I want to add actually to Claire's words is the importance of being in the process of being. The importance, I mean, like personally, the challenge I was facing at the beginning of coaching was having the courage to stay where I am, having the courage where having to do nothing, absolutely nothing, even when the client is being questionable, even when the client is asking or saying or thinking or assuming that he is ready for the action now. It's very important for the active listening to be effective. For me to be in the moment, for me to sync everything, as I said, I just want to go back to the orchestra and the music, because to me it makes a lot of sense. Why does it make a lot of sense? Because it's very important for me to feel the moment, to read between the lines, and it's not necessarily that the client wants to do something now or like to act upon something now, that this is the moment. So I believe this is a very important point Claire was pointing out. Staying with the being, staying with it's a process. Again, like just reminding myself and reminding everyone, it's trust the process, you know. And when we say trust the process, it's it might seem like just a sentence, you know, but it's extremely deep, because we change every day due to a lot of situations, a lot of emotions, and having to remind ourselves that I have to trust, I choose to trust the process. It makes the whole difference, actually. So I hope I added something to what Aneshrie was mentioning.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. To remember, like you say, trusting the process, taking back that
not rushing things,
yes.
not rushing things. Definitely, yeah. Like trusting the process is trusting that even things might seem not okay now for the client or for myself as a coach, but trusting that there will be a reflection later on. There will be, without me or the client thinking about what's next. It's just being now is going to do something later.
Mm. It's like the analogy of planting a seed, and that will grow through the process.
I just believe that it's going to show up, it's going to grow. I'm going to see the colors, I'm going to see the roots, Yeah.
Wonderful. So our chapter theme for ICW is holding steady together. And this is so, I think, relevant in coaching. We often coach the individual, but we of course also coach teams or groups. It's relational. There's always a ripple effect, right? Back into the system. And so, Aneshrie, maybe for you, in times of uncertainty, disruption, constant change, there's everything happening in the world. There's AI there, and then there's the day to day that pressures and things we work through. What kind of coaching conversations, or how do we help the client stay or remain grounded and connected and hopeful?
Yeah, that's a powerful question. As soon as you start thinking of uncertainty, you think of the brain and how in times of uncertainty, we often feel like we're in a threat of some sort. And the same is true for clients, in uncertainty, when they're dealing with all this ambiguity, they're most likely in a threat state of some sort. There's fear, there's a greater sense of urgency, sometimes a sense of scarcity, like there's not enough, or they're losing out on something. And so if we can also just notice as a starting point that, when there's that threat state, it's not just cognitive, it's actually, there's a physiology behind it. And so it's an invitation then to become more regulated, or invite the client to drop into their body at that point. Because when the body steadies, the mind can follow. And so I think a starting point, if I'm noticing a client saying certain things, and either in their tone or what they're sharing, that's alluding to this kind of threat state due to uncertainty, is to integrate some kind of somatic awareness, inviting them to notice that internal physical state, and helping them get grounded as a starting point, even before we explore their thinking. So, they'll be like, as you say that, what are you noticing in your body? And if I can find them, rushing through something, like, let's slow that down. What happens if you take a breath and say that again? So maybe those would be some of the things that would be helpful to help them stay grounded in that kind of threat state when it's coming up.
Wonderful. Hamsa or Dr. Clare, anything you'd like to share from your perspective on that?
What's the question again? Please.
In times of uncertainty, disruption, how do we help clients remain grounded and even hopeful?
Okay. Claire, would you like, or?
I'm happy. Yeah, I'm happy to.
Okay.
So there's a concept that we use when training supervisors, because what we find is at times that are like, major disruption, mergers, takeovers, acquisitions, and recently in the region, it can be really useful to contract with senior leaders who've had a lot of coaching already, to contract for supervision and coaching, and decide together in the moment what would be most useful for them. So the reason for that is exactly what Aneshrie was saying in terms of process, to stay with them where they're at. And maybe these sessions where process is needed, there doesn't even need to be action accountability at the end. But what's beautiful is, what have you learned about the topic? What more have you learned about yourself? And light touch on what way do you need to show up for your people. The other thing is, in these times, obviously, and Hamsa pointed to it, we can hold a lot as coaches. And so we need to think, this feeling that I've got right now, is that my stuff? Is that because I'm in the Middle East as well right now, for example? Is it their stuff from their perspective? And I don't know the Arabic word for stuff, so I hope the word stuff's landing okay. Samira, help me in the chat. Our stuff, their stuff? Is it in our space together, in the third entity, in the relationship, in the coaching? Or is it just stuff that we need to let go? For example, oh, I had a shiver. It's because the air conditioning's above me, so I get back over there because it's not relevant. And the reason I'm saying about, is it my stuff, their stuff, our stuff, or just stuff? It can also help us identify parallel process when what's happening in our session in terms of the way we're processing and what's in our space, in our relationship, can be the same as what's happening for them in their lives, in their work. And once that's identified, it's amazing how much people are freed up.
Yeah.
Can I add something, Anine?
Sure. Please go ahead.
Sure. I want to share with you from a different perspective also. From my perspective, it's this all goes back to who am I being now at that moment? Who am I being? And this for me, I'm speaking about myself. It makes it easier on myself. It makes it more comfortable for me to connect towards a steady relationship or holding things steady together. It's again connecting, reconnecting, reminding myself to the intention. What's my intention of being here? And my intention, as like for example, Clare, she was mentioning, and Aneshrie, it's all about the client. It's not about me. So if it's all about the client, I'd ask, I'd check in, away from assumptions, away from sometimes we think it's very small assumption, but it plays a very big role in the shift. It plays a very important role in the transformation. And one thing maybe I'd like to share with you is many times during the sessions, sometimes me as a coach, I know I'm not okay. Like I'm conscious about it, but I know like I'm not 100% like present, and I'm conscious about it. So what do I tell myself? Like, and in a second, reminding myself to go back and to reconnect to the intention, as I said, and to reconnect. What does the client want? And like to listen to the client, like my heart, my soul. It's not only listening, physically. And by having said that, miraculously things shift at the last moment. It's just like the football. I know I'm using a lot of metaphors today, but it's just like football. There was a football between two teams in Saudi Arabia here.
That's nice. Yeah.
And and what happened is the last moment has changed everything. So it's okay for you to be not 100% present. It's okay. At the end of the day, I'm a human being, and then it's okay for me to be imperfect. As long as I do believe in the process, and 1 minute of you being present, and 1 minute of you being available for the client and available for yourself can turn things miraculously, actually.
Okay, thank you, Hamsa. Aneshrie?
Yes, thank you. So this topic is definitely sparking a lot of thought. Um, and something that came up for me is, when we're in uncertainty, it's such an ideal opportunity to meet the client with empathy because uncertainty often triggers, feelings of shame, that fear of I'm not enough or fear of being irrelevant. I should have figured this out by now. So all kind of shame language that could come up. So it can be an opportunity to practice shame resilience, which is, meeting the client with empathy and non-judgment. And in that way, this could probably be the only time this client is experiencing that. And the words that we could use in that way could be, just normalizing the experience. Like it makes sense that this feels unsettling, or, many people in your situation would also find this kind of ambiguity disorienting. So just kind of normalizing them, letting them know that it's okay, that, what they're experiencing in these times of uncertainty, it's that many would actually experience the same. So
Mm.
allowing them to feel that empathy for what they are feeling.
Thank you for that, to help them reconnect back to their humanity, right? Because I think again with executives or leaders or
Yeah.
people that there could be that pressure. And like you say, the coaching can create that safe space, that psychologically safe space for them, which they may not have anywhere else but in the coaching relationship. And what you've also just shared just sparks a thought around stories and the stories we tell ourselves or the coachees tell themselves. And again, this is where the language and the words and would come into that, which all of you alluded to. How do you then take that and bring them back, like you said, not just to what they're saying, but what you're noticing in the body or in what they're not saying? What are you reading between the lines, or maybe what you're feeling? Because again, maybe it's difficult for them to articulate because it's new for them. It's really new for them. And we all know that everything starts with noticing, and then you can move to naming, and that can then build the awareness. Dr. Clare, you wanted to share something?
Yeah, I got excited by what you were saying there. So I think what's super useful, and it really aligns with the MCC bars as well, is using their exact words and saying those back in the same way, tone, pitch, speed that they did, as opposed to paraphrasing and rephrasing. Not that they're wrong, however, especially in stressful times or anxious times, or when someone's new to coaching, or important for us, or when we're working with people where I coach people from all over the world. And so if I use a different word than they did, you said you're excited. They actually said they're elated. If
Yeah.
I use a different word, it may have an entirely different meaning. So that's one thing. But the other thing is, as opposed to what are you feeling, find that with leaders, what lands easier maybe is what are you experiencing? And actually, that's more open, because feeling is just feeling. Experiencing can be so many different things. I see this, I hear this, I'm noticing tension. And to keep checking in on at the start when you dive into the coaching, when the goals have been clarified and the rationale and how important is this topic, what are you experiencing as we dive into the coaching? And then check-ins. And then at the end, what are you experiencing as we're leaving the session? That can also help them to stay grounded and be with self.
Wonderful, so powerful. I think it links to our responsibility we have as coaches with the words we use. So I was just reminded of that when you said that, using the exact same words to avoid, again, stories or assessments running with, oh, now I've used this word, is it wrong? Or did I, then there's something else going on, which could then take you a different route to where the conversation was going. So I think that's so important, what you've just said, how we then create those spaces with the words, but also the alignment between our language, the words, the emotion, and how we are holding ourselves or embodying ourselves in the session can be quite powerful or influential. So thank you for that. I see we are
Can
almost
I
out.
ask something? Just
Yes,
one last thing, Anine, please. Just
yes,
from my humble experience, it's yeah, I've noticed actually, especially when you coach different languages, and different cultures, you tend to not focus on one language or way of expression. So what happens is this goes like down and this goes up, and so it's okay. It's very much okay. And it's okay to partnership with the client, actually. Like, for example, I'm coaching in English now, and I'm coaching in yesterday, and today I have to coach in Arabic. Coaching and the different regions are totally different. I mean, we put all the countries and all cultures in one basket, but definitely that's not the truth or the fact. And this is what I noticed in coaching, how different we are in describing and expressing our emotions and terminologies. So I love to invite other coaches to always create. I mean, it doesn't really have to be terminologies. It doesn't have to be in the dictionary, And you and the client create your own terminologies, your own meaningful expression. I mean, it doesn't have to really make sense for the others. It makes, as long as it makes sense to the client, and I understand what the client wants to convey and express.
Absolutely. I think what you're saying is so powerful. How do they define whatever it is? Because again, sometimes language can get in the way of where we're trying to go. And I think we can all resonate with what you've just said. Thank you so much. We can continue speaking on this topic for much longer. But I want to honor the time commitment because Dr. Clare needs to go to another session. So I'm going to open it up to the audience. Any questions from the audience for our panelists? Sausan, go ahead. You on mute?
Hello, and yes, I am now. I opened it now. Sorry. First of all, I want to say thank you very much for everyone here. And it was such an inspiration that I really just wanted to listen for every word. Everything was so enlightening. But I had just one question, if I may. We as coaches, we have to 100% engage with our client, meaning that we are leaving our ego, our inner self, and leaving the me behind, going to the session and being as a reflection of the unconscious of our client. And that is sometimes, especially for us as humans, it's not that easy. What is the best tool that you can advise that to use in order to reach to the point to be the mirror of our client? Thank you.
If I might.
Oh, sure.
Go, Hamsa.
Hey, go ahead.
Yeah, I have just a small thing, maybe to remind yourself, Sausan, that you are a human being. This is a very, very, very important, because maybe I wouldn't choose the word have to, like I have to be present 100%. There's nothing called as have to. It's I choose to be, and I do whatever I can. At the end of the day, I'm a human being. So reminding myself that I am also, as a coach, I'm a human being. So what I can put in the table, what I can give, what I can show, how can I show up in the session? I believe it's enough.
Thank you, Dr.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I actually believe that with authenticity at heart, we need to bring ourselves into the sessions. And I think coaching maturity, and David Clutterbuck's written on this, coaching maturity enables a coach to realize what to share and what not to share, what to take to their own supervisor, and what to share in service of the client and their topic. And there may be times when even something random comes into our mind. The other day I was coaching someone, true story, and I just had this vision of lots of, felt tip pens that were feeling claustrophobic. And so I shared that with the client, and they're like, oh, it's this project. I do feel totally trapped. Now, that was a transformational moment they shared. And if I hadn't have shared what was going on in what I thought was my crazy brain at the time, we might not have got there.
Yeah, if I can weigh in, I love what Coach Hamsa and Coach Clare have shared, and I echo that that authenticity, that humanity that we bring in. In our work we call it vulnerability, and it's vulnerability with boundaries. So being like discerning what's okay to share, what's not okay, and what's my intention for doing that. So yeah. I think owning our vulnerability and bringing that also into the session with discernment, I think it can be powerful.
Thank you. Wonderful. Any other questions from the audience to our panel? I'm just checking the chat. Oh, thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay, then just before we close, I'd like to ask the audience to please complete our evaluation, just so that we can get that feedback and improve things for you. And then really finally, I want to thank our wonderful panelists for your wisdom, your insights, and just your perspectives. I've also learned a great deal through the session. So thank you. And thank you to everyone who attended and joined us tonight. I think the one thing we can carry forward is, as the topic says, words matter. And our coaching conversations can help expand awareness, restore clarity, strengthen connection, and inspire transformation for our clients. And I think especially in these uncertain times, all this complexity, I think these conversations can help us do something deeply human, which is to hold steady together. So thank you very much, everyone. I've thoroughly enjoyed the session. I could go on and on with this conversation, but we're going to honor the time commitment. If there's any final words from anyone.
Well done, Anine. You've done an amazing job.
Oh, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
You're welcome. I'm going to stop the recording.